Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today is leap year. What are you doing for leap year this year? I'm doing this topic chat today about starting firms and thinking about what you need to consider before leaping into a firm. 4 years ago today, I rocked a marathon. A marathon is 26.2 miles. Rucking is carrying weight on your back. So I carried about 35 pounds on my back for an entire marathon. It was a long day. It was a lot of fun. It was great memories. It's very cold. It's below freezing most of the time. And I made great friends with those folks who I spent time with. And so it's always interesting to think back on what you do on leap years. I encourage you to go do something special that'll be memorable. So 4 years from now, you could say, what was I doing 4 years ago, aside from just sitting on this IC Topic Chat? I don't think you're going to remember this 4 years from now, but if you do, that'd be amazing. Anyway, so this is about key considerations before you leap into a firm. Obviously, the reference to the leap. And just so you know what I was thinking about doing and how I did this was this week we gathered a group of people who own firms, independent consulting firms. And I consider a firm really anybody who has more than one employee, meaning usually when you have one employee, you're referring to yourself. And so I looked at the numbers for this at the last survey, and there were about 250 people who responded to the survey that said they had an independent consulting practice, and about 25 of them, these numbers are a little rough, said they had two or more people in their practice, meaning probably themselves and somebody else in some capacity. And so to me, that means about 10% of our peers are independent consulting firm people. So that's how I define firm. So we got together with this group. Most of them met in person in Atlanta. I met virtually from this cabin here in Shawnee National Forest. And I asked them, I put out a survey to them and I said, hey, just quick and dirty, here's some things I'd love to know so that I can report this back to you guys. And so we had 7 responses. There were about only a handful of more people who didn't respond. So I got a pretty good share of responses. And I wanted to know, what do you wish you knew before you got started? What's your favorite part of owning a firm? Alternately, what's your least favorite part? How do you spend your time? Because a lot of us are like, hey, do I get to still work with my people, my projects or not? Would you do it again? What advice would you have for a trusted colleague for others? And then what other comments do you have? So anyway, I'm going to jump into it. So what do you wish you knew? And I'm just going to pop up kind of like my qualitative review of their responses today. I wish I knew that I should connect with others, right? Connect with others. Clearly, we just were in a group where we all gathered together. So of course they were thinking that. Don't go too fast. I think a lot of people want to race ahead. It's important to create policies for clarification, like policies for your staff so that there's not any question about how things should go with time off or how you should operate in certain ways. It was like getting an MBA. I didn't expect that. I wish I knew that I was going to effectively get an MBA in how to run a business. And finally, there's a lot of stress involved. Didn't realize there was going to be stress. My perspective is, and I've been thinking about this a lot, if you're going to go out and do anything, you're going to find stress no matter what you do. You're not going to escape stress. Stress is going to be there if you're an employee working for somebody else. If you're going to have stress, you might as well have some level of control over it. That's my perspective. But this is what that person said. What's your favorite part? I asked. They said, my team. And that was overwhelmingly. I saw that a couple times. I love serving others in the community. I mean, by creating a consulting practice in general, we get the opportunity to go do these things. In many ways, you get to do more of that. Providing great jobs to my team. The opportunity to build off one another. So there are a couple references to the team here. So definitely the favorite part was people, actually. My perspective is you get higher highs. We're obviously going to have highs, but in many ways, by working with others and because you have kind of more revenue and more ability to meet the needs of others, you're going to have higher highs. But on the other end, what's your least favorite part of owning a firm? Administration was overwhelmingly. That's why it's all in caps. Payroll. There's a lot of stress around looking at those big numbers. I spent an obscene amount in payroll last year. It's usually, for most, by the way, payroll for most people, for most organizations, it's 75% or more of the annual budget. And so that's something to consider, probably even more than 75% for a lot of us, because we're working with pretty skilled people. Least favorite part is that managing piece, having to deal with this, with employee difficulty, feeling alone, workload balance, particularly in the early stages of getting into a firm. There's just going to be so many things to figure out. I know my first couple years, I'm what, 4 years into, well, just this will be my 5th year of having more than one employee myself. And the first year was actually pretty chill. It was awesome. It was just one staff member. We didn't have any policies. We both got paid well enough. It was pretty easy. But then we won a big contract and everything started on fast forward. And it was just, the workload balance was crazy. I wasn't sleeping. I was stressed out, feeling alone, definitely felt alone. I mean, I had my partner in, my wife, but it was just a lot to figure out. There are lower lows opposed to the higher highs. So, I mean, right now I'm dealing with a handful of issues that are just intense. They're very intense and they're bigger. They're bigger issues. They're lower lows, I guess is the way to put it. How do you spend your time? So obviously a lot of us think, I want to go become an evaluator or an independent consultant because I want to serve my clients. The reality is you don't get to serve your clients 100% of the time when you start a firm, when you start bringing people in. So of the 7 responses, the average, these are about the averages, about 25% was on active client work. I do very little active client work, actually. I probably do less than 15%. 24% administration, about 27% business development and marketing, and then 24%, because I knew I was going to forget something. I said, what are the other things? And it was mostly professional development, like what we're doing right now, I guess would fit that. Doing writing, strategy and planning, other types of meetings with their staff that doesn't fit into those other categories, at least by the way those people were thinking. So the key thing here, and this was a reference to a quote from somebody from this last week, do you want to run a train yard or do you want to drive the train? I loved that reference. So in many ways, by taking on a firm, you are running a train yard. Somebody says, well, I really just want to I want to drive a big train. And I was like, well, okay, there's the happy medium. But the reality is you need to you're managing a train yard when you become a firm director. Would you do it again? Was my question. What this is saying is, yep, it's absolutely worth it. Everybody said yes. Now, of course, these are people who are in a place where they've been successful. So is this completely representative of everybody who's ever started a firm? Not really. It's representative of people who had the opportunity to meet together, to think more critically about what's going on. But the reality is, of those folks, they all would do it again. Nobody wants out. So I said, what would you tell a trusted colleague? Effectively, I said, what would you tell all these people I'm going to meet with on Thursday for this IC topic chat? What should they know? They said, be patient, okay? It's not always going to happen overnight. You can't just snap your fingers. This takes time. Part of that being patient is making sure you know who you're serving. You want to narrow your niche, or niche, as some people say. Get a business coach. And I've heard Ann Price, who's here with us today, say this over and over and over again. She'll talk about Tracy, how great Tracy is. Get a business coach. Grow your staff and surround yourself with experts, said one of the individuals. In many ways, recognize you are not the expert, that you are here to support the others. Find your peers, and here you are amongst all your peers. So you've already taken that step along the advice from the trusted colleague. So lastly, I just gave the open-ended comment, what did I forget to ask? What are your additional thoughts about owning a firm? And probably no surprise here, engage in the ICTIG, find your peers. Know that by engaging in these communities of practice like this, and others as well, I'd like to talk about the Grant Professionals Association is another great place. There's other organizations that probably are more specific to who you're serving, but find your people, ask them the questions, learn what you need to do to make your consulting practice amazing. Know this is an incredibly humbling opportunity. One person said, if you basically made the point, like if you're having problems with a client or with a staff member, at the point that you know it's right to do, fire them, because you need to just get it out of your way. Think about the life you want to have. And effectively, this was a longer quote. I don't have the full quote here for you. Think about the life that you want to have, reflect on that, and then pursue that goal because it's worth it. Finally, this was an actual quote. Buckle up, it's quite the ride. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to stop the recording. We'll jump into the chat part of the session today. And for those of you who are here live, stick around. For those back in YouTube land, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for stopping in. I'll see you next week.